Black Spring on your Monday. It's a 7-Eleven. Where have you heard that before? 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven. I was inspired to entitle this drive this I was entitled to coin, for lack of a better word, this stream. Okay, so I just have just a quick little story I just want to go into. So we've all talked about what we've all tried to be, whether you subscribe to signs of the times, whether you're agnostic, whether you're I don't know, whether you have spiritual beliefs, whether you believe in biblical prophecy, whatever your conviction, wherever they lie, you can't deny that some of this that we haven't been primed, or we haven't been massaged, or we haven't seen, that this hasn't been foreshadowed at least. Okay, so what I have for you right now comes from the biometricupdate.com. I want to make sure. So this is my source. So I try to give you guys sources on things. So according to the biometricupdate.com, looks like the Bahamas are gearing up for a national digital identity. So I'm going to paraphrase. So, this is, Bahamians. I don't know if we have any Bahamians. Am I saying that correctly? If they are listening to this stream, but we've talked about this before, so I just want to give you a little bit of a landscape review. In the past 2.5 years, we've heard about safety and truth, and that's all. And quite frankly, that's all we've been hearing. So apparently, much like the U.S., we're hearing about these ministries that are being established all over the I guess the continental U.S. and I guess territories of the U.S. So it makes sense. Okay, so but another thing I'm going to say, that not only have we been hearing about these ministries of truth most of the year, we've been hearing about safety for the last 2.5 years. I want to say 2.5 years of safety, talk of safety and reliability, and the public's responsibility and the government's responsibility to secure public safety. Most things have been under the auspices of safety. Okay, and to me this is no different. Okay, but here's the other thing. This is my ticker, is that I think it's safe that we can look to, I'm starting to look more to the global networks of news, because I feel there's less conflation there, and a lot of the direction we're going, you can see the writing on the wall that it's going to come. We're actually being led more by global. There's a global tick that we're on right now. We are being led by other nations. Okay, we are not on top. We are not, and to me, I hope this is not going too far out, but it might be. But I'm just thinking, to be honest, how long can you honestly say that the U.S. and the government has been America first? How long can you honestly say that? If you go back to even to the 90s, when you just think about the trade, our trade and the concern for espionage, and there was talk about the 5G and who would we share these types of secrets with this type of intelligence. Where did we see that? Well, you can go even back to the 90s, to the days of Newt Gingrich, and the amount of trade policy and trade secrets that especially when it came to medicine and generics. Like, for one, most people don't realize that, dare I say, the order, is it China or India that's actually the leader in production of generic medications. That is true. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, back in the 90s, you can go far back and find that we had a Congress that strongly supported the trade and the globalization of medicines in our own bodies of government. They were willing to give up, to give that leeway to other nations. We've talked about this before. If you go back into the archives of this channel, I've gone into those topics extensively in the past. But we've given up so much already when it comes to trade. So I'm saying all this to say that it's never been the America first, America manufacturing, and being the leader in medication and technology. I think those things were we basically lost. We lost that in a Congress that basically voted to give more leeway to other nations when it came to production in medications. And not just that. It's not just China and India. There were other industries as well. But what I'm saying all that to say right now, we're still being led. We're still not number one. We're not number one when it comes to we're not number one when it comes to trade anymore. We're at risk. And to me, I think our government, our bodies of government have vastly betrayed the people with all the foreign entanglements going back to 1991. And the JBS has incredible correspondence between the UN, the CFR, you name it. Incredible footage. They have their own correspondents that have been boots on the ground, for the lack of a better word. Not just the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. You have the trilateral commissions. Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening right now is not a coincidence. It's been happening. And that's why I'm thinking, like, not everybody, but a vast majority wants to keep investing in the matrix and waiting on some type of savior, which to me, whether you're spiritual, no matter what your beliefs are at this point, we have economic antichrist. Okay, so all right, so I'm making up words right now. We have economic antichrist in our government, and you can take that for what it's worth. Take it with a grain of salt. But hey, in place of real representation, you do not have people in your government that have actually fought for the economy and fought for the resources and for the raw material and production here in this country. You have not. You've got traitors is what you've had. So to me, this is no surprise. So let me get back to, we're talking about from the biometricupdate.com, in which the Bahamas are actually gearing up for their national ID. They're establishing it. They're setting up the infrastructure for it. They've got their government on hand. They've got, the NASA? I don't know. Their publications are all coming out and saying, hey, this is the best way to go this is the only way to know, the safest way to go for safety, reliability, and the legal infrastructure. The people in those positions and parts of government are saying that's the only way the most trusted way to know that people are who they say they are. Now, come on, folks. This is what I'm revving up to. Besides all the betrayal in our actual Congress and our government in the past, this is not. Are you actually surprised? But I'm telling you, right now, I find that it's more. You'll find much more reliable news, even if you look to international trends when it comes to updates like this. When it comes to the establishment of the digital identity, because it's coming. They get it first, and it's like the U.S. It trickles down over here right now. It's they're not able to implement the full tyranny that they want to, and I'll tell you. I think you already know why that hasn't been it. They're slowly chopping away at that. But I'm telling you that I find more reliable sources and less bias in more global sources than I do in all of the, whether it's ABC networks, the Hill, the CNBCs. Those aren't my sources, regularly. But I'm just saying, like, you can't, like the Fox Newses, you can't really look to these networks, to get something that's unbiased, and they're not really, they kind of stay here on the ground. They kind of stay here at home and keep the propaganda going between the blended parties. Okay, that's what they do. That's their job, is to keep enough sand in your eye to keep irritations. Whether you're blended toward the left or you're blended toward the right, whatever, you're still voting for a blend. Okay, there's no absolute anything. And so I'm saying all of this to say that we've been massaged, we've been groomed, we've been plowed for this digital identity. And it was done under the auspices of the CV19. CV19 is the thread for everything. In fact, there's I'll talk about something else at some point, but I'm saying everything is being drawn back to now we're going from safety to truth, safety. Just think about it. There's been attempts to establish truth ministries by this administration. Okay, we're hearing the word ministry from all over from the continental U.S. or the U.S. territories, or we're hearing those kinds of phrases, or those kinds of they're adding that to the front ministry. And to me, they serve one goal. It's one goal to get you to think that safety is a governmental responsibility, and that your identity, that they decide they decide what truth is. They decide who you are. And see, this is another thing that I've talked about when it comes to, quote, the black community, and how much that word has been corrupt. That's a corrupt identity, because you've got a leader or regime leader telling you that if you didn't vote for him, that you weren't black. So there again, they want to establish your identity, whether they base it on color, how much massage and how much lube, where they are given, try to give legitimacy to things that there's no real proof, that they have no proof for. It's the antithesis of what they say it is. Just think about it. So you're being massaged into what identity is, but then you got the Bahamians. They're somewhat leading a charge. I don't live in the Bahamas. In fact, I've never been to the Bahamas. In fact, I will not be going to the Bahamas at this point. You almost need to look internationally. Sorry. You almost need to look internationally for truth, right? On this 7-Eleven morning, I'm saying you might just consider it. I said, listen, this channel has never been to persuade. It's always been my goal to inform. In this endeavor, but it's not in this whole process. But I don't think so. They've already made decisions. Okay, and I do think whatever happens with the Matrix and all of these elections and all of these things, it's not that. I think they're going to usher that in. They are going to usher in the U.S. digital identity. I mean, okay, so the thing that they have talked about in this particular story and publication, in which TSA has already, the face identification is something that had already been implemented at some other point. Okay, so there's some infrastructure there. I know that of course, it was kind of a mess here. But do you think I don't think they're working out the kinks? Oh yeah, they are, without a doubt, without a doubt. So I just found that to be interesting, But here we are back to these same buzzwords, these same concepts: safety, trust. The same concepts are now. They're worried about your ID, your identity. They're worried about your identity after, trying to give legitimacy to things that don't legitimize identity. The whole gender bender, the whole gingerbread thing, the whole, all this stuff. So they figure out, you know what, you people, you peasants, you can't figure out who you are. I tell you what, we'll tell you who you are. We'll tell you who you are, and we'll tell you we'll tell you how high and how you can prove it to us. Now prove to us that you are who you say you are. And some people might say, hey, it's just it's a symptom of transhumanism. Yeah, okay, you can argue that probably. Because I think they're going to, eventually, what it means to be a human being is going to be re-identified. It's already, look at Ferrari, is what we call it on this channel. Let's look at Ferrari and the Schwabs and all these people. They basically want to create a new bio class that's going to separate. There's going to be a whole other definition of what it means to be human, and then the proper, what does that mean? It's almost like, we've heard even at like Davos and that health assembly that they had in Geneva, Switzerland, Swiss. They had I remember between the CERN founder Fabiola. I can't think of Fabiola's last name right now. But she and Yo-Yo Ma were having conversations about, they were having conversations about, nuance and the next generation and, just what it takes to have the kind of success that they have had and what truth is. And truth is an aspiration. And see, that's what I'm telling you guys. They want to be the people, the dare I say, the elite, the 1%ers, the scientists. Believe the science, believe the sorcery, right? They want to be able to tell you what truth is. And you know what? And for Fabiola, the founder of CERN, to say that basically the truth is an aspiration. Well, my gosh, how megalomaniac? How much of a megalomaniac can you be? So it's like these group of people sit around and talk about what we should be defining ourselves as, or how we should be defining truth, or what they define truth. It's their aspirations that will define your truth. It's their aspirations that will define your identity under these new infrastructures and these new systems. Okay, so and a lot of Americans are going to say, oh, we have a constitution. And do we have one? Yes. Is it being upheld? No. Because first, I mean, it's huge. It's a huge violation. It's a huge Fourth Amendment violation, because when you start talking about identity and digital, then that's a privacy violation. Who owns the components of the ID? Who decides what goes into this identity? Are you comfortable with all of this attachment, with all these attachments? Do you want to be plugged in that way? Do you think you're safe? Do you think that that's what safety is? I think seriously we have to look at what we define as at this point. What is at this point? Who do you trust your safety with? And that's what it's going to come down to. But it just seems like most of America is on a lull. They're concerned with the Johnny Depps and they're concerned with the gingerbread man and all these things, and they can't focus on, they're distracted from the real issues, or dare I say, the kitchen table issues, as I've heard this regime say many times. And yeah, not everybody, because that's a horrible generalization, but I'm saying that with everything that's going to come out, I think the legislation is already in place. And I don't think anything's going to change. That's the Debbie Downer coming out of the BSWA report for your 7-Eleven. They're going to try to creep it in. They're probably already doing it. They're dripping it into other pieces of legislation, whether it be acts or, I said, at one point, if you guys don't remember, that there was talk about how the T administration, how they wanted to plug the illegals coming over the border. Like, they were talking about that. They were saying, oh, well, they just want to plug them. And see, that's projection. We all know the classic projection that they do. We know they were talking about that. But to me, there again, the truth. How do you define what an illegal alien or an immigrant is? The identity on that will be by what their aspirations will be used to define what the identity of somebody that's not here in this country legally. It's good. To me, it's going to be a huge issue. And not to mention the Yates of the world, and what he's done with Gavi and MasterCard and his friends out of India. It's going to be a huge deal, because because at one point, they were doing everything under the auspices of humanity and poor people. And every time he opens his mouth to defend anything, whether it's GMO, and he admits that GMO was originally meant, GMO was originally meant for human beings and medicine, and now now he knows what's best for you when it comes to your agriculture, your nutrition, all your needs. He that lives in the Bahamas, or maybe you can get some words from people on the ground there. What are they seeing already? We've all seen the facial recognition, but I think that's what's next. I think one of the signs that I would say that I saw was when the Emmanuel Macron of France. I think that was a part of one of the things that he was wanting to implement right away, and we've seen it in other places as well. Not sure if it was Nigeria, but some of these other places are all what's happening in your neck of the woods. If you know anybody in the Bahamas, tag them in. Let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate you guys for entertaining me on this 7-Eleven BSWA. So these are just a couple of morning thoughts. A lot of common concepts that we've had to deal with in the last 2.5 years that lead to the same thing. The DVOC was the impetus for safety. You're manipulated into safety being managed by the government, the big daddy government, and then the next thing, your trust. And do we have trust in this institution? Do you guys trust what's going on? I'm just saying, just curious. Just curious. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Those of you that are tuning in, and for those of you that are being le voyeurs this morning, it's all been done before. If you don't have time come in, that's absolutely fine. I tell you, do your due diligence wherever you are, and yeah, leave your comments in the fighter as the midterm matrix comes into play, which to me, that's what they've been doing all year. I think these about the previous person, and then the campaigning. I think they campaigned for 4 years. They do the 4-year campaigns, but then you've got the same. You vote for the blend, okay? Pick your blush, baby. I mean, it's pretty blended at this point. But like I said, I honestly, I think that StreamYard has been quite disappointing. How much of it is in the censorship ministries, I don't know, but I think chances are not too bad. The amount of copyright strikes and things that they've thrown at people for music that they allegedly, the subscribers had the rights to, they still managed. Shout out to the Lockhart Perspective, because I think that's been going on for a while, that they would ding your actual account for, music or tunes that were allegedly covered under your subscription via StreamYard. So at times, I've got to, if I want to keep this going, I've got to do this in a way that's going to be less, to have the fewer obstructions to keep it going. And so I appreciate you guys for being along, staying around and sticking around and being there along the way. But I have taken some time off screen, and we'll see what that looks like. The path beyond today, where we are. So we'll see what that looks like. But I want to try to keep this going and keep disseminating information and challenging you to think. It's like I said before. It's not to. Good morning, Melinda. It's not. The channel was not designed to persuade anyone. It's always been an informative objective, and to like people to think, because you're certainly not going to get any stimulation on the general networks, the mainstream networks. In fact, they've injected all of their identity and they've injected so many things that tear away at thought. They've ridiculed people, they drop propaganda, they speak loops, and just they mine in your interest, and mine into your vulnerabilities, they mine into your fears all day long. And that's not what this channel is. That's not what it is. And for people that, and I don't mind for people to say, oh, well, I don't necessarily, well, my argument is different. I have a different argument than you. Okay, fine. But, recognize this is only to inform. It's not to persuade. If you don't think there's going to be, if you don't subscribe to the concept of environmental lockdowns, then you don't. If you don't think there'll be a sustainable development goal that they'll try to reach, or an environment sustainability goal, then you don't agree. But please, back it up with something. Like, don't, when it comes to writing, I think people want to see you back up your. Oh, Belinda, let me read your message here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Oh, we have hi, Chris Lucas, fishingfortruth.com. I appreciate you for coming in. Melinda says, don't get much information on alternative. Credited with this Higgs boson particle. Yeah, truth is, you do need aspirations for truth when you're dealing with a bunch of dishonest people that are manipulating things. Yeah, in that case. But it doesn't need to be, truth is not a living and breathing thing. It's not. And that's the scientific definition. So who can trust them? If everything is always, truth is always evolving, identity is always evolving. I'm going to be using some other sources to inform. So that's another part of, I guess it's a PSA on the end of the stream right now. Because you're right, Melinda just hit the nail on the head when she said, there's too many, some of the alternative media is a tactic. And I find that to be some of the biggest YouTubers. They are grift based or controlled opposition, and they know that. And I find that even people that look to Tucker Carlson, or they swear by him. I find that he can be the same. He can be the same kind of controlled opposition. And who's to say, to be controlled opposition? What's the difference between controlled opposition and a grifter? What is it? Tell me that. Is controlled opposition an aspiration? Is grifting an aspiration? I'm saying, if we're going to get into the spectrum and nuance here, it's pretty wide, right? What people are doing to survive in these climates, in these times. Because I tell you, we're in a transition. Hi, Independent Many United. I think we're in a huge transition right now. And I think the transition right now, when it comes to I think the grifters have grown. Those are the only people that are surviving, I think, right now. The biggest YouTubers, the people with the million plus or 2 million plus subscribers, those are the biggest grifters. Do they believe the crap that they say? I don't think so. But in order to stay on the tubes, they've got to do, if you look at the content of some of these largers, the truth tellers have, stepped their game up and gotten more dings. But the grifters, they've kind of changed their content a little bit to for the lack of a better word, to stay in the game, if you will. But check out that biometricupdate.com on the Bahamas, gearing up for their digital identity. And my point of this stream was, I'm looking to the global. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and